If only Rhea has spoken up. If only she had told someone. If only she had left sooner. Maybe. Just maybe. Before we dive deep into this amazing and interesting story, please like and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Rhea pressed her back against the cold tiled floor, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Blood dripped from her lips as she gasped for breath, her ribs aching with every tiny movement. Maxwell stood over her, his face twisted in rage, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His chest rose and fell heavily as if he had just fought a great battle. He had. But Rhea was not his enemy. She was his wife. She had done nothing wrong. At least, nothing that deserved this. But in Maxwell's mind, she had committed an unforgivable crime. She had answered a call from an old classmate, a man. That was all it took to set him off. Before she could explain, before she could even end the call, his hand had come crashing down on her face. The next thing she knew, she was on the floor, struggling to breathe. She wanted to cry for help, to scream, but she knew better. Maxwell had warned her 1,000 times. If you ever tell anyone, if you ever embarrass me, I swear, Rhea, you will regret it. And she believed him. He was not a man of empty threats. But tonight felt different. As she lay there, staring up at the ceiling, her mind whispered a terrifying truth: she might not survive this. Rhea's hands trembled as she tried to push herself up, but her body was too weak. Her head spun, her vision blurred. She tasted blood in her mouth. Maxwell paced the room like a wild animal, rubbing his head, breathing heavily. He always did this, acting like he was the victim after beating her. As if he didn't know what had come over him. As if it was her fault. I told you, Rhea, he muttered, his voice low but dangerous. I told you never to disrespect me. She wanted to tell him she hadn't done anything wrong, but she had learned long ago that reasoning with Maxwell was useless. He didn't see things the way a normal person did. He saw everything as a threat. Every smile, every glance, every word she spoke to another man was proof that she was cheating on him. That she didn't love him. That she wanted to leave him. But she didn't. Not because she didn't want to, but because she was afraid. She had no one. He had made sure that. It hadn't always been like this. Once upon a time, Maxwell had been the perfect boyfriend. He had loved her, spoiled her, treated her like a queen. She had felt so lucky to have him. But looking back, she realized the signs had always been there. The way he questioned her about every man who looked at her. The way he got angry if she took too long to reply to his messages. The way he always wanted to know where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. Back then, she thought it was because he loved her too much. Now, she knew better. Maxwell's love was a prison. And she was trapped inside. After what felt like forever, Maxwell finally stopped pacing. He knelt beside her, reaching out to touch her face. She flinched, but he ignored it. I'm sorry, he whispered. You know I love you, right? Rhea wanted to scream at him. She wanted to tell him that this wasn't love. That love didn't hurt like this. That love wasn't supposed to make her afraid. But she knew better. She had tried reasoning with him before. It never worked. She forced herself to nod. That was all he needed. He smiled, as if everything was okay again. As if he hadn't just almost killed her. And just like that, the nightmare was over, until the next time. The next morning, Rhea covered her bruises with makeup and forced a smile as she prepared breakfast. Maxwell sat at the table, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. Her hands shook as she poured his coffee. She was careful not to spill it. If she did, it might be another excuse for him to get angry. Good girl, he said as he took a sip. You see, things are better when you listen. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She had to get out. But how? Maxwell had taken everything from her. He had made her quit her job. He had forced her to cut ties with her friends and family. She had no money, nowhere to go. She was trapped. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The abuse continued. Sometimes, it was physical. Other times, it was emotional. The insults, the gaslighting, the threats. Rhea lived in constant fear. Then, one day, something happened that changed everything. She found out she was pregnant. At first, she thought this might be a blessing. Maybe Maxwell would change. Maybe, just maybe, he would finally become the man she fell in love with. She was wrong. Very wrong. Maxwell didn't take the news well. Instead of being happy, he became even more paranoid. Is it mine? He asked coldly, his eyes dark with suspicion. Ray's heart broke. Of course, it's yours, Maxwell. You're my husband. But he didn't believe her. He accused her of sleeping with other men. He accused her of trying to trap him. And that night, for the first time, he hit her in the stomach. The pain was unbearable. Rhea curled up on the floor, clutching her stomach, tears streaming down her face. She prayed, begged, wished for the baby to survive. But deep down, she knew. The next morning, she woke up in a pool of blood. Her baby was gone. Maxwell acted like nothing had happened. You should have listened to me, he said coldly. That was the moment Rhea knew she had to leave. Even if it killed her. She started planning her escape. But Maxwell was always watching. Then, one evening, she saw her chance. He had gone out drinking with his friends. She grabbed the little money she had saved, took her phone, and ran. She ran like her life depended on it, because it did. But Maxwell was smarter. He had been tracking her phone. He found her at the bus station. She barely had time to react before he grabbed her and dragged her into his car. You really thought you could leave me? He laughed, but there was no humor in his voice. Rhea sobbed. Please, Maxwell. Just let me go. But Maxwell had made up his mind. If he couldn't have her, no one would. That night was the worst of them all. Maxwell locked the doors, took her phone, and beat her like he never had before. Rhea knew she was going to die. She should have told someone. She should have asked for help. But now, it was too late. The neighbors heard the screams, but no one came. No one wanted to get involved. By the time Maxwell was done, Rhea wasn't moving. She was barely breathing. And for the first time in his life, Maxwell felt fear. Real fear. He shook her. Rhea, wake up. She didn't respond. Panic set in. He checked her pulse. It was faint. Too faint. No. No. No, he whispered. I didn't mean it. I swear. I didn't mean it. But it was too late. Rhea was slipping away. He rushed her to the hospital, but the doctors just shook their heads. She had lost too much blood. They tried everything. But in the end, Rhea took her last breath. And Maxwell broke. The police came. The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Maxwell didn't fight them. He just kept whispering, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. But it didn't matter anymore. Rhea was gone. And he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. As he sat in his prison cell, Maxwell replayed everything in his mind. The jealousy. The control. The violence. He had destroyed the one person who had truly loved him. And now, he would live with that guilt forever. If only Rhea had spoken up. If only she had told someone. If only she had left sooner. Maybe she would still be alive. But now, it was too late. And the world had learned a painful lesson. Love is not control. Love is not fear. And sometimes, silence can be the most dangerous choice of all. Moral lessons. Love is not control. True love is built on trust, respect, and freedom. If someone constantly monitors, accuses, or isolates you, it is not love, it is control. Speak up before it is too late. Rhea suffered in silence, fearing judgment and threats. If she had spoken up earlier, she might have found a way out. Silence in the face of abuse only allows the abuser to continue their harm. Red flags should never be ignored. Maxwell showed signs of insecurity and possessiveness even before marriage, but Rhea mistook them for love. Always pay attention to early warning signs in a relationship. No one should tolerate abuse. Love should never hurt. No one deserves to be in a toxic or violent relationship. The moment someone disrespects, controls, or harms you, it is time to walk away. Society must not stay silent. The neighbors heard Rhea's screams but chose to ignore them. If they had intervened, she might have survived. It is everyone's responsibility to speak up against domestic violence. Abusers do not change unless they seek help. Rhea believed that having a baby would change Maxwell, but it only made things worse. People with deep insecurity and violent tendencies need professional help. Love alone cannot fix them. You cannot save an abuser by staying. Rhea stayed, hoping things would improve. Instead, she lost her happiness, her freedom, and ultimately, her life. Leaving is sometimes the only way to survive. Fear of judgment should not stop you from seeking help. Rhea feared what people would say, so she endured everything. But in the end, those same people did not save her. Always put your safety first. Jealousy and insecurity destroy relationships. Maxwell's insecurity turned him into a monster. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. Without it, love turns into a nightmare. Domestic violence has lasting consequences. Maxwell thought he was punishing Rhea, but in the end, he destroyed himself too. Abuse never leads to happiness. It only ends in regret, pain, and loss. This story serves as a painful reminder that love should never cost you your life. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, seek help before it is too late.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.